Hey folks, how is everyone? I hope you are all doing well. Good to see Jolyn in the audience, and I see Mark is out there. Awesome to see you. And then Diego Cabrera says hi, Michael and Peggy. Hello, how are you folks? Great to see everyone. Hopefully, some more will be filtering in, and those that can see on next to the little anybody's name, if you are a member of this community in YouTube, you have a little symbol there, and members at the $9.99 level or above, you guys get a daily tip that I do for everyone. And then you also get to speak to our guest in a backstage pass, kind of some of the benefits that we have for the channel. And we have exclusive stuff helping me whenever I'm going live with something or something like that. I can test it out with my community members. So thank you, community members. Mark Barris, thank you so much for your $2 super chat or super sticker or whatever it is. Thank you so much. That is very kind of you as well. You get a fancy little colored post whenever you do any kind of super chats or super stickers and stuff like that. Thank you so much. And Diego, I'm not sure seeing you before, but awesome. Fantastic. Great to see you. Glad to have you, etc., etc. So anybody that's filtering in, be sure we are very open. We shoot from the hip. There's nothing planned really. So my guest today is a product expert that is a product expert just as I am for Google. So I'm going to bring on Peggy. Hey, Peggy K.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for saying yes. And we did something on this particular topic before, but I really feel like I talked to you about this in the green room before we started, but I really feel like it's kind of on a comeback. I'm getting more and more notification. Hey, do you want to add this passkey? Do you want this passkey? And it's not just with Google products. It's like with Microsoft. It doesn't matter what it is. It's across the board, all kinds of stuff. So let's get on that. Jump on that. Go ahead.
So, I wanted to actually first give a short overview. What the heck is a passkey?
Right.
And I think that, like you, I see this pop up all the time, and there's not a lot of explanation other than it's saying, hey, you should do this. So here's the idea. The idea is you can sign in using a password. That's something right? Your username, your password.
Mm-hmm.
To be that more secure, you can use two-step verification. So that requires you to enter your password and then use the second step for something you have. So that would be like a physical key, or it would be getting a text message to your phone because you presumably have your phone. All right, so that's more secure than just a password. But the real security is that they say passkeys are much more secure than passwords even, because passwords, there can be a data breach. You can forget it. People use the same passwords everywhere. All these things, problems with passwords. Passkeys have two steps where it's something you have, like your phone or your computer, and something you are. That's how they put it, because you need to unlock your device. Often that's with your fingerprint or your face, or it can be a PIN. So the idea is that this is super secure. Nobody can gain that information because it's only
done by you
to sign in if you have this device and you can unlock it. So that's the idea behind passkeys. And there's a consortium. It's called the FIDO Consortium. All the big tech companies are part of this consortium. Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, all of them. They are working towards standards for doing this. But there have been a couple of updates since we last talked about this in 2023.
Yeah.
So I was gonna mention some of that, and then if people have questions,
that's fine. Real quick though, I just want to touch on. So for some of the people might not know what the difference in two-step authentication and this is, in your opinion. I mean, or if you actually know, or would you say, what do you think on that?
Well, the main difference is that two-step verification still uses a password. So you enter the thing
Great
and then you verify it's you by the thing you have. So you get a text message, or you have a YubiKey, something like that.
Right.
Keys, you don't use a password at all with a passkey. With a passkey, all you use to sign in is your device and the fact that you can unlock the device.
Right.
So this is what they call the passwordless future. And there's a problem with that, of course, because what happens if you lose your device or your device breaks or you want to change to a different device? All these things happen, especially there's lots of people out there that only have one device, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have, a phone and a tablet and a computer, but there's lots of people who only have their phone.
Correct.
Or folks who may only have a computer. And so what do you do if that fails, if you lose access to that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's your only access to your really important accounts. So this is something that they're working on. Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted to mention today. That's something that's changed since we last talked about this a couple of years ago. So I think the one thing I wanted to mention, if you could put up the slide.
Absolutely, 100%. Let me do that right now.
Oh, and a fun fact. FIDO is the name of the alliance. That stands for Fast Identity Online. And they're, and they're working on it so that it should be consistent across platforms. So one of the things that they have updated over the past couple of years is that being able to synchronize passkeys across devices. So, for example, for Google, you have Google Password Manager. The idea is then you're not locked into just one device. And you can store passkeys with third-party services like 1Password, so you don't need to just store it in your Google account. And then this is just something announced this year at the Worldwide Developer Conference for Apple, supporting passkey import and export. So a big problem is it's fine if you can synchronize your passkeys across devices. So for Google, you use the Google Password Manager. For Apple, you use iCloud synchronizing.
Yeah.
But what if you want to change platforms? What if you are using a Mac and you decide to switch into Windows, or you have an iPhone and you want to switch to Android? How do you synchronize that? So what Apple is launching with the next version of iOS, macOS, is the ability to actually export your passkeys and then import them somewhere else. So this is like a missing feature that they're doing. Again, this is all following standards that this consortium has worked out. So the expectation is, while Apple has announced this, Google will probably support this as well. Microsoft will probably support this as well. It's the question of how quickly they will implement this.
Yeah, exactly. They don't always work together that well. So we'll see how that all comes together with that.
Yeah, but it's still a worrying thing, right?
I know.
Where if you only have one device, I saw Diego made a comment.
Yeah, Diego, he has it right there. Yeah.
Access, enabled it on your college email, and then your phone broke in the pool, and you'd forgotten your password. There you go.
Exactly.
So that is the downside.
There is.
Passkeys.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that isn't fully solved. The problem is there's all these technical implementations, but then you have people, right? People are always the weakest link.
Yep.
So, we'll see what happens. But I also wanted to mention, we're talking about Google and talking about Apple, but it's really Microsoft that's leading the pack on this. Actually, with the latest updates just a few months ago, they set it so that new Microsoft accounts are passwordless by default. So if you go and create a Microsoft account now, it is not set up with a password. It is set up with a passkey. I think you can still add a password, but and Microsoft supports it on Windows, and they also have something called Windows Hello to sign into your computer. And
because most people don't have a fingerprint or a visual thing for their computer too. So you have to tie in your phone some way or something.
Well, you can use the PIN also. I think that a lot of people do. So again, a PIN isn't as secure as biometrics.
That's right.
Because a PIN is something that somebody else could learn.
That's right.
Really, will they be using apps like Google or Microsoft Authenticator or the new Microsoft Defender? Here's an interesting thing. Yeah. Great question. Starting this month, this is something happening right now.
Yeah.
Microsoft is no longer going to let you store passwords in Microsoft Authenticator. You can get them in Edge instead, but they explicitly say that it will store passkeys. So
interesting.
Yes,
they're really making that push. They're really making that push.
Yeah, yeah. So you can take off the slides if you want.
Yeah. That's
fine. One of the big problems is that this is really confusing for most people. We've all been using passwords forever.
Yeah.
And so it's a sort of mental shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is going to take a lot of education and practice, even for those of us who are paying a lot of attention.
Yeah.
It's even a lot to learn.
Those of us that are used to it, even, you know what I'm saying? So even the people that are used to it, it's still, and that's why I was very reluctant to use passkeys for a long time. I have been. I've just said, nah, you know what? I'm going to stick to two-step authentication. I don't have a problem with it. A lot of people have a problem with it. I don't care going in 2 times, doing all that. But I just recently, a couple apps that I've used, one is eBay and a couple others that I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do the passkey thing. Let's just see if it's better. The only thing is that my phone's upstairs and I'm trying to get an eBay on my computer down here. Yep. It's kind of a pain in the butt. And I wish I could, you know, my watch and phone are tied together. I wish I could thumbprint here or something and do that. That would be amazing.
That would be great.
Yes, on my watch, because my watch is always with me, even in the pool or whatever. I mean, you know, if I'm that's kind of extreme example, but yeah, it's very frustrating though.
I wonder if that's something that they're working on. And of course, the problem is that the vast majority of people don't have smartwatches.
Right. No, I know that. Yes.
You know, so they need to be working on a lot of things with general implementation, plus things like a smartwatch connection for people who are, you know,
even a Fitbit. A lot of people do the Fitbit, even if they don't do a watch, they do a Fitbit, or a lot of people more and more are wearing something on their wrist, or even a necklace, whatever. I mean, you know, they use those for, you know, I've fallen and I can't get up kind of deal. I mean, I know my mother-in-law has a necklace on that does, I mean, anything, whatever. If you could just press it and go to it, I think let's try and make that work, right? I mean,
yeah. So, you know, like you said, more and more they're pushing this. I think Facebook just announced you can sign in past, you know, all the big platforms. And so they're going to push it more and more. And I think the hope is that as people get used to it, they can phase out passwords, because it's just not going to work to just shut off passwords. People aren't.
I agree.
Ready for that yet.
And then then gradually bring in some of these other things or ways that you can access and get. I mean, eventually, seriously, I really believe this, because I know YouTube's making a big push for our TVs that we have.
Yep.
I'm thinking the next remotes that they come out with, like for your, you know, you have a remote for your TV or your Chromecast. I bet you fingerprint's going to be implemented. I mean, it's just my guess. I'm just thinking of the future, and I'm thinking, who knows?
You know, there's so many possibilities there. And I wanted to also say, the important thing is, with all of this, is don't forget to add backup options to your accounts. I'm talking not just your Google account, but Microsoft account, Meta account,
good point,
bank accounts, everything. You want to make sure you have backup options, backup email, backup phone number, and if you set up and you should set up two-step verification. If you have a password enabled, you should have two-step verification, and for that, you should print out your backup codes because if for some reason you don't have access to the second step, those backup codes are the way you get in.
Diego brings up a good point here too. He says, especially for education users on Google, password as it is are hard for little kids to log into their Chromebooks. Adding passwordless just would cause trouble. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing too. Facial recognition. I knew that was an issue for elementary schools here. Any kind of facial. You also get into liability. I don't want my kids' facial recognition. You get into all that. And even if they do, a kid that starts in second grade goes to fifth grade, his face changes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of things that we don't think about, but yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And at the other end of the spectrum, it's actually really difficult for seniors also.
Right. Exactly. Great point.
Typing is difficult.
100%.
On the good days anyway, but if you have issues with muscle control or memory, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the easier it is, the better. But
I love the idea of fingerprint readers, like keyboards that have fingerprint readers. They're really trying to do things like that, which I think is awesome. They should do that because that is a very good one. Because it's you then, wherever you are, it's you. I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I keep throwing that out there, just what I think on that. Because I love the idea. I love the premise. It's like you said, it's not a password. You don't have to remember it. It's not something you have to remember and stuff, which I like that. I think that's awesome.
So I do think it's going to be an interesting experiment, what Microsoft is doing. They finally are having people make passwordless accounts. And it's an experiment in real life, right? How is that going to work? I kind of feel like maybe people don't store as much important information in the Microsoft account. I don't know. But it'll be interesting. And, how many people use authenticators? I don't know. It's so much of this is hesitation, not knowing how it will work.
Love my fingerprint access. Yeah, exactly.
So here's a hypothetical though. What if something happens to your hand?
True.
And it definitely happens. You can hurt your fingers.
Yep.
Things
You're
like
in
that.
a cast. You're in a cast. Whatever.
So you need to have multiple options for signing in because
I agree with
you could lose access to one of them.
Yeah. Yep. Retina scanner.
A cheap retina scanner. That's
the only issue with that, again, anything that you have, like you said, something happens to your hand, something happens to your eyes, whatever reason, whatever, let's just say, then you can't access anything. I mean, any of that is always the case. But also, if somebody steals your little book that has all your passwords in, it's the same thing.
I mean, the very worst thing is to only have passwords.
Yeah.
That is totally insecure. We've seen so many data breaches.
Right.
So many times, people use the same password on multiple different accounts. So don't just have a password, set up two-step verification and try a passkey.
Minimum,
interestingly,
that's right.
So for Google accounts, I just was adding two-step verification to a Google account, and I went in, and for this particular account, it automatically set up a passkey when I enabled two-step verification because I was already signed into that account on my phone.
Wow.
So it knows it's on my phone, and it just automatically creates an Android phone. It just automatically creates passkeys. So if you are using Android devices, you probably have passkeys on all your Google accounts already.
Just don't even realize
with your phone.
Yeah, exactly. I like the fingerprint part of that personally, the fingerprint. And she says she does two fingers. That's true. But if both hands get burned, I mean, we're throwing worst case scenarios up there. I mean, I'm just throwing it up there just because they really need to be thinking ahead on two things two ways to sign in. And we see that
Mhm.
with the Google accounts being in that forum. We know about people who don't have multiple methods to access and do all that. And it's not just that Google, it's any of them,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Add backup options,
Yeah.
a variety
Mhm.
of backup options. Every backup option that you can think of, you know, imagine the worst case scenario. At some point, that's going to happen to somebody. So
That's right.
it's really hard, in the help communities, especially when people come in, I can't access my account,
I know.
and I will say that Google and Microsoft, and I suspect all of the big platforms, they do these sort of background security analysis things where they are taking into account a bunch of different factors, your device, your location, all these things,
Mm-hmm.
to see if they need to add extra security for sign-in, because
Right.
sometimes it happens somebody has access, so they want to detect that maybe it's been hijacked, and they do an analysis, but people then get locked out because it's like, oh, I lost my device and I moved and I can't go back, or I haven't signed into my account for a year, and they try to sign in, and like Google's giving them a really hard time because Google can't confirm that this
Verify.
is
Yeah.
account owner,
That's right.
even though they know the password. So
yeah, that's true.
biometrics might fix that.
I mean, I hope so. To a certain extent, I really do hope it does. I mean, I think that can be a good thing. But I also think one thing, and I know a lot of people can't afford, like they can't have an iPad and an Android device and this, and they can't afford the two systems. They can't have many different ways. They can't afford two phones. Oh, if this phone dies, I got this phone where I can put this on here, and it's kind of weird that it's getting to that point to a certain extent. I'm only saying that to a certain extent, but that's why I'm saying you really kind of have to have maybe a device that you've already authenticated through, like with your TV or with your computer. Windows machines could really go crazy with that if they had the thumbprint right on a keyboard or something like that, where there might have to be other things that you would have to do, because then somebody could just take the keyboard, take it over here and do, whatever, which I think is fine because it's still you. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I did that at home, but I need to do that at work. Well, now I got to take my keyboard there whatever. I'm just saying there needs to be more than one way. Like you were saying, I think you said that earlier. There definitely has to be more than one way.
I think that it's really the case in a lot of places, especially outside the US. We're talking like maybe in India, where people just have a phone. All they have is a phone. And if they lose that phone, they've lost access.
Yeah.
So how are companies going to manage that?
Yeah, I know. But let me do like my mom's phone or my brother's phone or somebody else's. So at least I've got a potential chance to get back to that. I mean, that's just my 2 cents, just throwing little things like that. They really have to think that through, I think, before they just say, sorry, you lost your device. Now you lost all of your accounts. You lost this, you lost that. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I mean, it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Andrew says, there you go. Need cheap logging devices separate from your regular.
So, they do have this in a way, right? You can get like a YubiKey. I think I'm not sure how much they cost now, maybe $50, which admittedly, that's prohibitively expensive for some folks, to spend an extra $50 on something, but it's certainly cheaper than buying another phone. So I think that I feel like the price of the technology for the keys should decrease, right?
I agree.
We see that with other devices. And so hopefully that becomes more of a standard option that regular people will have, and not just,
And rather than lose your identity, I think it's worth 55 for me, it's worth $55 as opposed to losing my identity personally. I mean, I'm just using that as an example, but then you have to make sure that it works with a MacBook, or does it work with my Android, or which does it USB? Is it USB-C? And you get it run into all that stuff too. So
everything should be universal.
Agreed.
And I think
but
that's
it's not
one
going
of
to work
the
with your
limitations.
iPhone. It won't work with your iPhone then. Older iPhone, I should say.
Yeah, so it sounds like, newer devices, they are getting more options. And so the tech companies are certainly aware that this is something that needs to be worked on. It's just slowly being implemented. When we talk about this again in 2027.
That's right. That's our next time.
I expect that we'll have more options there.
I'm hoping. I really am. All right. We're at like the 30-minute mark. Is there anything that you would just like to touch on, or just kind of like a closing something that you would like to say about this in your opinion? And then we'll wrap it up and get in with the community in a backstage. Go ahead.
In closing, use all the security options for your accounts, your Google account, your Microsoft account, your Apple account, your bank account. Set a secure password, because passwords are still a thing. Don't use the same password for multiple accounts. Set up two-step verification and set up backup options. Print out your backup codes for two-step verification. Set up backup phone number and backup email. Just imagine the worst case scenario. What would happen if you lost access to your account? And then take the steps you need to secure it and make sure that you can get back in if you need to.
That's awesome. Great advice. Great advice. All right. Anybody that's watching this later, if you're watching this later and you have questions, don't hesitate to put questions. You can even, if I'm not mistaken, now in comments on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you can put @Peggy K, and your little icon comes up, and you'll actually know that somebody left a comment to you. But even if you don't, that's fine. If you don't remember who Peggy K is, if you want to leave a question and ask her, feel free to do that in the comments, because I'm always reviewing my comments. So if you're rewatching this, would love to have you interject anything that you feel, or something that you say, hell, you know what, I don't like this because of this, or I like this because of this. I'm open to all that stuff. I love to hear all sides of the story. So anytime you do that, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and you always have great feedback whenever you come in with different stuff. So
I'm always happy to come on. It's always a great live chat, and folks are really engaged and discussing this and interested in the tech. So it's awesome.
Well, you are more than welcome. All right. We are going to, anybody that is a member, I will send the link out to you folks. You can come in the backstage pass with Peggy and I. Peggy will stick around for a little bit and chat with us. I'm going to do the outro. I'm going to take us on out. Once again, Peggy, thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
Thanks. You, everyone.
Bye, everybody.